Serial killers are defined by the actions they committed in life, but it's not often we look upon their final actions. This video will focus on the most interesting final words of serial killers before their execution or death. Ted Bundy is probably the most infamous serial killer in American history, and for good reason. He confessed to killing 30 people, but this number could be much higher. But in contrast, his final words were quite mundane. I'd like to give my love to my family and friends. Mundane is not what could be said about the terrifying last words of Peter Kürten, also known as the Vampire of Dusseldorf, who murdered at least 9 people in Germany. He was caught and described as the king of sexual perverts. Before being executed by guillotine, his last words were, "Tell me, after my head has been chopped off, will I still be able to hear, at least for a moment, the sound of my own blood gushing from the stump of my neck? That would be a pleasure to end all pleasures." Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, murdered and mutilated 17 boys. When 2 members of the police showed up at Dahmer's door, he explained to them that their suspicions were just a misunderstanding. Just as they were about to leave, they saw 2 Polaroids of disembodied corpses. He was promptly arrested and sentenced to 941 years in prison. He said, "I don't care if I live or die. Go ahead and kill me," before being beaten to death by another inmate. A serial killer whose last words haven't come true yet is Aileen Wournos. She was a serial killer and a prostitute who shot her clients at point-blank range. She killed 7 people and claimed they were in self-defense. Her last words were, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back, like Independence Day, with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all, I'll be back," before being killed by lethal injection. Wayne Gacy may be America's most evil serial killer of all time, dressing up as a clown and killing 33 young boys. His final words were nice and simple. "Kiss my ass." Wesley Allen Dodd was a convicted serial killer and sexual child abuser, whose final words were, "I was once asked by somebody, I don't remember who, if there was any way sex offenders could be stopped. I said no. I was wrong." After his execution, he never abused a child again. Gary Gilmore was a murderer who demanded his own execution. He was killed by a firing squad before saying, "Let's do it." This raid would happen to be noticed by a businessman the night before a presentation, where it had become one of the most famous slogans in business history. Nike's, just do it. Carl Panzeram was an American serial killer and rapist who confessed to killing 21 people in the 1930s. After he killed a prison employee, they sentenced him to death by hanging. His final words were, "Hurry it up, you Hoosier bastards. I could have hung a dozen men while you were screwing around." George Engel was one of the 4 conspirators behind the Haymarket Square bombing in Chicago, 1886. He was executed by hanging, and his final words were, "Hurrah for anarchy! This is the happiest moment of my life!" Jimmy Glass managed to escape from prison and murder 2 people in 1987. For this, he was deemed too dangerous for society and sentenced to the electric chair. His last words were, "I'd rather be fishing." The final killer is Thomas J. Grasso, who murdered 2 elderly people, one of them with Christmas lights. He requested an extravagant final meal, including 24 steamed mussels and clams, a double cheeseburger from Burger King, 6 barbecue spare ribs, 2 strawberry milkshakes, half a pumpkin pie with whipped cream and diced strawberries, and a can of SpaghettiOs. Only, Grasso did not get his SpaghettiOs, so he used his last words to expose this. "I did not get my SpaghettiOs, I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this," before being executed by lethal injection. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what your last words would be.